Okay there, and welcome back to Lawrence Explains Online Academic Tuition. In this video, I'm going to take a look at paper 2, English Language GCSE, and we're going to look at question 4. We've already looked at questions 1, 2, 3 in previous videos. Now we're going to look at question 4. Question 4 is the most demanding question of the first section of the paper. So we're going to look at this right now. And as you can see, there's a few more marks available for it. There are 16 marks available, so you do have to write a more developed answer. What we're going to do here is we're just going to go through and we're going to plan an answer. Probably, it would be a bit of a long video for me just to sort of type out an answer for half an hour. Probably not the most entertaining or interesting way of going about things. So what we're going to do is we're going to plan it and then discuss how exactly we would execute writing of the answer. So compare how the writers convey their different perspectives and feelings. Okay, so this is a thoughts and feelings question. I have a section about this on my course, thoughts and feelings question. In your answer, you could compare their different perspectives and feelings. So we will do that. I'm going to say thoughts and feelings there. That's just the shorthand I use. Compare the methods they use to convey the different perspectives, support response with references to both texts. So here we've got basically how. How do they communicate? How do they communicate? So we've got thoughts and feelings, and then we've got how do they communicate. So how do they convey their feelings about the sea? So first of all, let's just go through both. And let's just look first of all at what the thoughts and feelings actually are. What are their thoughts and what are their perspectives? So I'm going to go with green here for Fogel and Cracknell. So let's just go through thoughts and feelings here. I began to feel vulnerable. So the feeling of being vulnerable, and his analysis is, I thought if we can just make it to daybreak. Okay, so we've got a bit of analysis there. It's kind of analysis, it's problem solving, despite his nerves. And this sense of vulnerability as well is that, there's a lot of sea and there's not a lot of them, so they are in the kind of, they're obviously weaker there. All the stuff about the boat. I thought of my wife back home. I longed to be with her and away from this intimidating ocean. So we've got, again, the emotions there. And this is where the emotions and his thoughts, they kind of coalesce, they kind of integrate with each other, because he's thinking about his wife and there's an emotional connection, and he's also longing as well. And he also mentions the ocean being intimidating. So there's a lot there, really. And the overall sort of feel so far is this sense of, almost this sense of, vulnerability and intimidation. The sense of their own, smallness, really, in comparison to the ocean. So here we've got him looking forward and thinking about the sun, willing the day to break. So this is something we all do sometimes. We want something to happen, and we're kind of willing it to happen, and it takes its own time, but we're somehow in our mind trying to speed it up. So we've got this kind of it's an ineffective, really, coping strategy, but we all do it, and it's just, it's very human. Something wasn't right as well, so we've got this analysis as well, and his intuition. So you can't see that very well there, but it's analysis and intuition. He knows something is wrong. I felt like moving back. That's more a physical thing than an emotional thing. I clung to the oars for dear life. So there's a sense of absolute desperation at this point. And then here we've got a very nice technique called free indirect style. free indirect style. In fact, is this free indirect style? No, that's not free indirect style. I will come on to that in a different video. What is it? It's more like, it's similar to free indirect style, but we're going from an individual narration to really being in his headspace at this exact point. So it's all first person, but here we're going even more deeply into this personalized account, and we're getting right into his immediate thoughts and to his thought process there. So it's similar to free indirect style, but it isn't really indirect style. So we've got this, very intense first person voice, and it takes us right into his headspace. Which way is up? So we've got a question there. Started to panic. So again, all of this eternity there, and then panic as well. We get the emotional field that he's experiencing here. Gas my body screamed there. Okay, so next up. So again, we've got questioning. When you have multiple questions like that, what does that tell you? It tells you you're unsure, uncertain, maybe obviously panicking. What now? Who would ever find me? Why wasn't the spirit writing itself? So we've got again another question here, a series of questions showing he's unsure, he's uncertain, he's in a state of confusion, frankly, about what is going on around him. And he describes that well there. So those multiple questions give us a sense of uncertainty. Okay, so those are his feelings. Overwhelmingly, the feelings are sort of his insignificance and vulnerability in the face of just the gigantic power of the ocean. And those feelings come through multiple times. So we've got plenty to go on in terms of thoughts and feelings there. And I've underlined all of those in green. Probably should have scrubbed this off from the previous class, but anyway. This is really what an exam script, this is what my real exam script would look like. So if I was doing the exams, these would be the kind of notes and the underlining I'll be doing there. So we've got, on the second page here, this intense first person voice as well, really gets us into his mind. What exactly was he thinking? And we have the sense of panic as well. So all really, frankly, very negative. These are not pleasant emotions, and they're not the thoughts he's having. They're mainly problem solving, but at times he can't solve the problems, and he's asking multiple questions, and he's not sure, as in this case here. So those are the thoughts and those are the feelings with that particular extract. Just to go on to how it's communicated, a lot of it's communicated in quite straightforward language, I think. It's just quite a straightforward account. It's very dynamic. So style of communication. It's dynamic, it's action-based. There are no slow-mo pieces, or there's no lingering analysis. It's like, this happened, I thought this, what next? Wow, this happened. Now I'm getting sucked under the waves, and there's a pace to it. There's a pace to this extract here. So those would be things I would discuss in terms of the style of the communication. It's dynamic, it's action-packed, and there's a pace to it. At the same time, it's also very personalized as well. And the way he describes things I'd say it's quite clipped. Apart from there's one paragraph about the waves, but most of it is quite clipped. It's quite short, to the point. Sentences are relatively short most of the time. If you look here, half a line, just a few, not even few sentences there within half a line again. Very, very, very short sentences here. Boom, boom, boom. pace is quite quick. And even earlier on in the text, this is the more kind of resounding description here that we looked at on question 3. But even here, the sentences are not very long. So he uses short sentences and he moves the extract forward. And that's something that short sentences do. They move an extract, they move a piece of writing forward at a pace. And so that is the style that this is written in. Okay, so let's look at the other extract here. Now let's think about the thoughts and feelings and the communication style in this extract. We've got the Hudson extract here, so what do we have here? Ships seem like a living thing to me. So this is his thought process. A bit more analytical, a bit more almost poetic in a way. Okay, so mainly just description, although there is some personalized description. Start up and rush again to the cabin door. Sense of hurry there. I did not step out. And this is all observation at this point. It's all first person. So this is interesting here. My only thought was that at that last moment I would spring into the boat with them and save myself. Okay, so this is quite a it's an unseemly admission here. He's basically saying, I didn't even think about the other passengers either. I just thought, well, if they're gonna bail, I'm gonna bail as well. So there's a confessional aspect to that. It's clearly not something to be proud of, and he knows he'd be very aware of this as he's writing it. But it's something confessional there, and he's giving us the exact details of his thought process. And his thought process was selfish. And one person whose courage took a better form. So he's admitting his lack of courage as well. So it's somewhat self-deprecating. The first engineer obviously pulls a gun on them and says, "You get off. If you do that, it's going to be game over." Yeah, so this is all just more description here. Very, very descriptive. Was there anything else? Did I actually miss anything in that extract? Yeah, no, it's not that long. So, we've got his thought process on the last page here. It was true enough, we were stuck in the sand. I was determined, I at once determined to land. So basically, he basically talks about his survival instinct here. That's what the thought process is about. There's a hint of the emotions in there, but not the same detail as the previous extract. And really, there's a lot of description in this, but it's description of the whole kind of situation. So I'll put here, this extract is more descriptive, and obviously there are more characters in there as well, there are more people there as well. So there's a kind of group, or I don't want to say social, but there's a kind of what happens to this mini society or on a boat. What is the social thing that happens there? And we've got people who are supposed to be responsible, abandoning that responsibility. So there's more characterization in there, although it's not very deep characterization, but there's a bit more. It's mainly descriptive. We see slightly longer sentences as well. You can see that here. We've got, two slightly longer sentences. So slightly longer. They're not. This is not Dickensian, but slightly longer sentences. And the action moves at a different pace. It's a relatively slow pace. We're not, or in comparison to the first one, it's not like the wave surge knocks them over, they're swimming around, they've just run aground basically. And the moment itself is described there in detail. So the similarities between the two are that they're both first person. Just to go back here, so they're both first person. And if anything, number one, they're both somewhat confessional, but number one, the first extract is, much more kind of follows, moment to moment, a kind of fast pace. Second extract, there's an aspect of kind of, it's confessional at one point, and the pace is not as quick in the second extract. So those would be the things I would focus on in writing this answer down. So I would say I would begin my so that was question 2, wasn't it? I will begin my answer by saying, in both source A and source B, we see the two ships face a significant incident at sea, and in both cases they're both written in the first person, and both writers are facing some impending danger, and they respond in very different ways. And then I would go into, in source A, this was, James Cracknell or Ben Fogle's perspective, and go through all of those things that we mentioned to do with his feeling of insignificance, the feeling of danger, the longing to want to be out of there. His perspectives mainly being, problem-solving ideas, and he really doesn't blame the ship either. He really blames, well, he doesn't really blame anything other than, I suppose, it's the ocean, but he doesn't blame the ship. Whereas in the second extract, it seems like maybe it's actually partly the responsibility of the ship or the people on board the ship. So that would be my focus for source A. And then source B, we have again first person narrator. It's a little bit more descriptive. The pace is a little bit slower. He gives us this kind of confessional, this confession of his own selfishness when he thinks about just leaving everyone else stranded on the ship. And in terms of his perspective, he doesn't offer too many perspectives on it, and he offers the odd feeling here and there, but a lot of it is just descriptive of what is actually happening, and it's more social, it's more related to the other people in the environment as well. And then the methods they use, you've got different sentence lengths, crucially. We've got strategies used in source A, such as, the kind of questioning strategy, showing his confusion. And then source B being a little bit more developed, I would say, in terms of the description, and approaching things in a slightly different way. Support your response with reference to both texts. You want to be quoting through this. And one thing I always say to students is, do not waste your analysis on rubbish quotes. So all of the quotes I have selected there are reasonably well selected. They're judiciously selected. So any of them you could use for this answer, and they would be creditable if you commented on them in the right way. What you don't want to do is, let's just go back to this, let's go to source B. And let's say someone decided to go, I was just dropping into a doze when a succession of bumps, accompanied by strange grating and grinding noises. If someone chose that as their main quotation, I would say, does that really show much in terms of his thoughts or his perspectives or his emotions? Someone, doing some analysis on that, probably is not really going to get you very far. So you've got to be judicious and selective with what quotations you're using. This is a really important point, something I work on with students. Make sure you select good quotations. So although there's a few quotations I've selected there. There's not dozens of quotations, but there's a few. but each of them you'll be able to analyze quite well. So they're not expecting, some magisterial, incredible breakdown here. It's just a sensible breakdown using good quotations, analyzing the question, thoughts and feelings, and then also analyzing how the things are communicated, how the ideas and perspectives and feelings are communicated as well. So that is it for question 4. It does require a more developed answer and a more developed discussion. I would analyze one source first and then the other source afterwards. You can draw contrast and also show where there are similarities as well, and the place where you'd probably discuss maybe the basic similarities and contrasts would be in the introduction, and then you would go into a little bit more detail as you work through. Some people like to go, they reference one source, then they reference the other, then they reference one source. That can get a little bit unwieldy in an exam condition. So what I would probably, I'd probably suggest doing is referencing one source at a time, and then just comparing now and then through the piece. But you don't need to be rigorously disciplined in comparing every single quote from one to the other. That may be a little bit too much to actually pull off in an exam situation. Okay, so the video is going to finish here. So that is it for question 4 on this English language paper 2. Hopefully that is going to be useful to you. If you did find it useful and you're interested in finding out more, go over to my text guide on Amazon, or take a look at my course, or you can even get in touch with me if you're interested in private tuition and you're looking for extra assistance in that way. I do run a private tuition service for GCSE students, and I specialise in this particular exam and several other exams as well, but this one in particular. So I'll be back shortly to have a look at the next question on this paper, question 5, which is a creative writing question.